Hey, what's going on, everyone? Today I want to talk about my favorite EDH deck to play right now. I haven't seen an updated list in like years on YouTube, so I wanted to go ahead and just share my list because there's a lot of new cards that just came out that I think anyone who's building Sidisi currently or is into that might want to see some updated cards in the list. So right off the bat, the commander for the deck is Sidisi Brood Tyrant. It is one of each Sultai colors and one colorless for legendary creature Naga Shaman. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. So the whole deck is revolving around throwing cards from the top of your deck into your graveyard, and hopefully you hit a creature so that you can make zombies and you just overrun the board with zombies. So I'm just going to go left to right here. That's like the whole strategy for the deck. Starting off with our artifacts, it's a 1-drop Wand of Vertebrae. It costs 1, you can tap it and put the top card of your library into your graveyard, or you can pay 2 and tap it and you exile it and you shuffle up to 5 target cards from your graveyard into your library. This is a solid card because you can drop it turn 1 and keep putting 1 card into your graveyard, and you want to keep doing that. You just want to keep filling up your graveyard because there's going to be other cards that you can play from your graveyard. Even if you don't have Sidisi out yet, you just want to keep using this ability, the first ability for this card. Definitely a solid keep, and it's very affordable. The Cauldron of Eternity. This is a card I just added. I'm not sure how great it is. I haven't got to play test with it. It does things. 2 black and 10 colorless. It costs 2 less for each creature card in your graveyard. So I think it'll only cost 2 black. You know, if you play it late game or even mid game, you fill up the graveyard pretty quick with this deck. Whenever a creature you control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. Pay 2 life. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only time you can do a sorcery. And that's for 2 colorless and 1 black. That seems like it'll do just fine in this deck. Again, I haven't play tested it yet, so I'm not sure. If you've play tested this card, let me know in the comments if you like it or you think it deserves a spot in this deck. Up next is a staple, Bolas's Citadel. This card, it lets you reveal the top card of your library at any time, and it keeps the ball going. Anyone who's played with Bolas's Citadel knows what I'm talking about. I'm not going to read that. Crucible Worlds is great. You play lands from your graveyard. Excellent card for this deck. Shard of Broken Glass. This is a common from, I think, Innistrad, and it has just been overperforming. At common for this deck, it's insane. So it costs 1 to bring out. You pay 1 to equip. And whenever the creature attacks, you get to mill the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. So this card is golden. It is a hidden gem of the deck, and it's cheap to play. Up next, we have Embalmer's Tools. It costs 2. Activate abilities of creature cards in your graveyard costs 1 less to activate. That's not super relevant, but it does help sometimes. But we're playing it more for the bottom line here, which is you tap an untapped zombie control. Target player puts 2 cards from their library into their graveyard. So you can self-mill, or you can actually end up milling an opponent out. If you keep targeting yourself and you hit a creature, you'll create another zombie. And then you can just tap that zombie, and it's really good. It's a solid card for this deck. It really keeps the engine going. Up next, we got Perpetual Timepiece. You just tap it and put 2 cards, you mill 2. Then you can exile it to shuffle cards from your graveyard into your library, which you rarely have to do that. Up next is the Enchantments. Golden common right here. Chromatic Flooding. Enchant land. Whenever it becomes tapped, its controller mills 3. You want to target yourself, and it's just fuel. It is such a good card. It's overperformed so many times. And we only have 2 enchantments in this deck. The second one is Sultai Ascendancy. It's 1 of each Sultai color. And then at your upkeep, look at the top 2. You can put them both in your graveyard or just 1, and put the rest back on top of your library. So I'm actually going to not get into the creatures just yet. I'm going to keep going, and we'll tackle the creatures last. Our first instant and sorcery we got is Mission Briefing. This is really good. You get to Surveil 2, and then choose an instant or sorcery in your graveyard, and you get to cast it. It's almost like a Snapcaster Mage, but when you surveil 2, it'll trigger Sidisi, so it's really good. Aid the Fallen is incredible. It's like a staple for this deck. You're going to always have, essentially, a Planeswalker or a creature card in your graveyard, and it costs 2 to get them both back. It's really good. If you accidentally mill a win condition, you can play this and get it back. Then we have Thought Scour. It's okay. It costs 1. You can target yourself to mill 2 and then draw a card. It helps a lot. It's cheap casting, and it synergizes with your, if you target yourself, which you should be, it synergizes with your commander really good. Bond of Insight, it's performed well. It might be getting replaced because it costs 4 and it's not instant speed. Each player mills 4, and then you can return up to 2 instant and sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. So this helps you find like more of your win conditions if you end up milling it. So I like it for that reason, but it's not a creature, so sometimes it'll go into the stack where you mill and you don't get a creature and it feels bad. Grapple with the Past. Put 3 cards into your graveyard and return a creature or land from your graveyard to your hand. Really good, instant speed, excellent card. This is a new card I just added. I haven't play tested it yet. Mythos of Barocos. It costs 2 green and 2 colorless, and you can return 2 permanents from your graveyard to your hand. And then if you spend Dimir colors when you cast it, you can search your library for a card and put it into your graveyard directly, which seems to be good if you're trying to find a win condition. And our last sorcery in the deck is Worm Harvest. Create a 1/1 worm creature token for each land card in your graveyard. This card's overperformed so many times, and it has Retrace. So you can cast it from your graveyard by discarding a land. Like, you're going to be able to do that in almost every game. Moving on to the Planeswalkers. We have Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. His top line of text here says, if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. And then +1, target player mills 2, and then you get to draw a card. So you target yourself and have yourself mill 2, and then you get to draw a card on top of that. It's really solid. And then you can -8 to draw 7 cards. And if your library has no cards in it, you get to win the game. So it's a win condition, and he's really good. It's Jace, you know? You can't go wrong with Jace. Up next, we have Tamiyo, and she has super, overperformed as well. So it's Tamiyo, Collector of Tales. Spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause you to discard cards or sacrifice permanents. That's her static line right here. +1 is to choose a non-land card name and reveal 4 cards from your library. You put all the cards that you named into your hand, and then the rest go into your graveyard. So it throws creatures in your graveyard. It's really, really good. And then you can -3. You can grab any card from your graveyard to your hand, which is awesome because you can find that win condition that you need. All right. Definitely a overperformer as well. Liliana, Untouched by Death. +1 mills 3 cards. If you mill a zombie, you drain 2 from each opponent, and then you only gain 2. And then it has ways where you can manipulate the graveyard, but you're really just playing her for the +1, to be honest. Jace, the Living Guild pack. You're mainly playing him to +1, but you can -3 for a tempo. You're probably not going to -8. And then we got Ashiok, Dream Render. He's really good. So you can target yourself and mill 4, and then you exile everyone else's graveyards. This card's crazy good, and he only costs 3. He's definitely a card you want to have on curve. Or you can play it later if you want, but I mean, you can play it turn 3, and then play Sidisi, and he just goes to town. So moving on to creatures, our newest addition in the deck is Thassa's Oracle. I find that with this deck, really milling cards faster and faster every time I upgrade the deck. So we all know what it does. It hits the field. If you have no cards in your library, you win the game. Solid card. Up next, we got Spellkeeper Weird. You can sack it and grab an instant sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. It helps you, if you mill it as a creature with Sidisi's ability, right? So you get a zombie, and then you can sack it and grab a win condition, instant sorcery from your graveyard. Genesis, really good card. Deranged Assistant, it's kind of like a mana ramp. You tap it and you get to mill 1, and then you can add a colorless to your mana pool. It's It's definitely overperformed. Up next, we have Wonder. You mill that to the graveyard and you have an island, your creatures get flying. It's like Anger, but blue. It's if your zombies have flying, you're going to win the game. All right. Splinter Fright. It's a trample, power and toughness equal to all the creatures in your graveyard. He's a beefy boy for 3. Rotting Rats. This is like a pet card. It hits the battlefield. Each player discards a card, so you can get rid of like, something you want to throw in your graveyard, and then you can unearth it. So if you mill it in your graveyard, you can unearth it and do the effect again. I like cards that you can play from the graveyard with this deck, and this is definitely one of them. So this is a proxy. I own a copy of Hedron Crab, but I did not feel like buying a second copy, especially not for like $5 or whatever it's going for. So I made a proxy. This is a Hedron Crab. There's the Hedron, can't you tell? Landfall, mill 3. You can target yourself or your opponent. You're going to target yourself. That's just the way it goes. Reassembling Skeleton is really good. You can just play it from your graveyard for 2. Another overperformer in the deck. Extractor Demon. This guy costs a lot, but he does things. Whenever a creature leaves the battlefield, you can mill yourself for 2. And then it has Unearth, so you can play it from the graveyard for 3, which is pretty good. Hogak. Oh, I don't even need to discuss Hogak. He performs so well in this deck. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Nightville Sprite. When you attack, you surveil 1. If it's a creature, throw it in the graveyard. It's really good. It definitely filters your deck. It triggers with Sidisi, and it has evasion. It's like perfect. Lazav is another one of those cards. It's great for this deck. You can also use his second ability X, and it becomes a copy of a creature in your graveyard, which is incredible. Crypt Breaker, you're going to have a lot of zombies, so why not tap 3 of them and then draw a card and lose 1 life. It just keeps the flow going. Satyr Wayfinder is really good. You pay 2, you mill 4, and then you can put a land into your hand. It's one of the best 2-drops in this deck because you can get the land you want and throw the creatures in the graveyard. It's like it does what you want to do. Tygam, Sidisi's Hand. So it's Sidisi's Hand. It's gotta go in here. But on top of that, it does really good things. At the beginning of upkeep, you can look at the top 3, put 1 into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. So it definitely synergizes with your commander. Boneyard Lurker. This is a new card from Ikoria. I guess it's not that new anymore, but it's new to this deck. It has Mutate, and it pretty much does the same thing that Eternal Witness does. Eternal Taskmaster. I like early turn board presence, and then you can later attack with it and bring cards back from your graveyard. So like he has a job to do. If you draw him late game, though, he's not really that great. Nyx Weaver is incredible. At your upkeep, you throw the top 2 into your graveyard. Really great with Sidisi. Its ability on the bottom, you can get a card from your graveyard and put it back into your hand. So when you mill that win condition, bring it back. Second half of the creatures, we got Merfolk, Secret Keeper. You're going to mill yourself, then you're going to put a blocker on the field. Thassa, the Golden Fang. You can delve and get him out there pretty good, and his ability helps with Sidisi. I like him. Izarith the Awakener is definitely an overperformer as well. 3/3 with Death Touch. I thought it was a flyer, but I guess not. It has a great triggered ability. You're going to have creatures to target. Play that card. It's good. Slitherhead's good. If you mill it, you can pay 0 and put a counter on Sidisi. Your commander will end up being a 4/4, which it's a free buff for your general because you're going to want to attack with Sidisi at some point. Gogori Findbroker. This is like another Eternal Witness effect. It's a little steeper to play, but it's worth it. Kessig Cagebreakers is insane. Insane with this deck. There's times where I've played this and attacked and I bring in like 12 tokens. 12 zombies. Like this card is another gem for this deck. And I think the price on this is actually creeping up, so not so cheap anymore, but I got it when it was like under $1, I think. We have the Eternal Witness. You know what she does. Catharic Adept. So you tap it, put the top card into your graveyard. Really good. Synergizes. Cheap to get out. Another card that's cheap to get out, Stitcher Supplier. This card is great. And you can chump block with it and mill 3 more. Enters the battlefield, mill 3. Then you can chump block with it and mill 3 more. This card is crazy good. Up next, we have Whisper. So you can tap it and sack 2 creatures to return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. Excellent card. Dream Eater's been really good too. It has flash and flying. You get to surveil 4 when it enters the battlefield, and then you can bounce, what is it, a creature? You can bounce a permanent, so it could be anything, as long as it's not a land. So, really good card there. Underrealm Lich is crazy good. I'm sure you guys know what it does, so I'm just going to keep it moving. Meltrotha, insane for this deck. You get to play cards from your graveyard as if they were in your hand. This card is fire. This card is one of the best cards to be playing in this deck. Glowspore Shaman, costs 2, you mill 3, and then you can put a land on top of your library after. Nemesis of Mortals. Costs 1 less for each card in your graveyard. Easy to do. And then has Monstrosity 5, which also costs 1 less for its ability. He's a beefy boy. He's really good. Emery, Lurker of the Lock. She's incredible. There's not really many artifacts in this deck, but the ones that you get, if you mill them, you can get them back using her ability, which is pretty cool. Skullwinder is a 3-cost Death Touch. Okay, when it enters the battlefield, return a card from your graveyard to your hand and choose an opponent, and they get to do the same. So you're going to have a better choice than they will 90% of the time. Azoni, 1000 Eyes. Excellent card. You play it, you get a bunch of tokens. Are they zombies? You get a bunch of tokens. They're insects. They should be zombies, but whatevs. No big deal. Up here we got Spark Double. It costs 4. Copy a target creature or planeswalker you control. This card is awesome. Okay, this card, from the minute it got spoiled in War of the Spark, I ordered like 12 copies. This goes in like every one of my decks, every one of my commander decks. So you can play it and copy your commander. If you have 2 Sidisis, that means you get 2 triggers. So you get 2 zombies. It's really good. Spark Double is insane. Up next, we got Shambling Shell. It has Dredge 3, which is why we're actually playing it. And you can sacrifice it to put a counter on Sidisi if you need to. But really, you just want to Dredge 3 when it's in your graveyard and keep milling, keep getting zombies. Viraz the Scar Striped. He's pretty sweet. You can sack another creature to regenerate him, and it gives all the cards in your graveyard scavenge, all the creature cards. Really good. The Get Rod Monster. We know what he does. He's insane. He's an engine. You play him, you're going to draw cards. You're probably going to win the game if you don't get stopped. Ghoul Tree is just like, you can play this for 1 green essentially, and it's a 10/10, so it does things. Sheoldred, the Whispering One. So at your upkeep, you can return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, and at each opponent's upkeep, they sacrifice a creature. This card is really, really good. It feels bad if it's in your opening hand, but when you draw a late game, you are doing things. It doesn't really synergize with the commander, with Sidisi very well, but I feel like it doesn't really have to. Like, it does synergize in a sense where you can get cards from your graveyard, a creature from your graveyard, which you're gonna have by turn 7. If not, you're doing it wrong. So I would suggest playing it. It's really good. And then up next, we got Huo 2-0. I don't know how to say it. Honored Physician. Okay, let's go with that. So you tap it, you put a creature card from your graveyard on top of your library, and activate this ability only during your turn before attackers. So you can essentially put a creature on top and guarantee that you're going to mill a creature to get that zombie. He's been okay. He might get replaced, but I like that I can guarantee that I'll be milling a creature. So I really like it. I'm going to keep it. So I think that's everything other than the lands. Right? So let's go. Let's pull up the lands real quick. Up first, we have Dakmore Salvage. This card, we're playing it because it has Dredge 2. So you want to keep playing Dredge cards. Most Dredge cards are great for this deck. Actually, most Dredge cards are just great. So this might be the best land in the deck, hands down. When you mill it, you're happy. Llanowar Reborn, it has Graft 1. I'm only playing that to make Sidisi bigger. That way I can swing and not really worry about if she gets, if she dies to a bigger creature or whatever. Drainyard, it helps you mill 3. I honestly haven't used that ability, but it's in the deck. It's just like another thing to do. Terramorphic Expanse, Evolving Wild, and Ash Barrens, they help you find the basic lands that you need. Exotic Orchard is great. There's a good chance you're going to have a blue or black player at the table. These two enter the battlefield tapped, but it fixes your colors. Crypt of Agadim, add black to your mana pool for each black creature card in your graveyard. This card's crazy. Really, really good. Hideaway lands are fun to me, so I have this in my deck because I like to have fun. Drownyard Temple. This is good if it's in your graveyard. You can pay 3 and bring it back. It's really cool. Witch's Cottage. Return a creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. This can synergize with your commander, and it could also pull a win condition from your graveyard if you need it. Duskmantle, House of Shadow. Honestly, haven't used that ability very often, but it's just in the deck as another non-basic land. Alright, dual lands. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are Dimir dual lands. And honestly, they don't really matter. Most of them enter the battlefield tapped. Watery Grave does not. Temple of Seed I like to filter. I like that Scry 1 effect. But these essentially help fix your mana. So I play 5 for Dimir because Dimir colors are strongest in this deck. 3 Golgari ones, and then we have 1, 2 Simic. Alright, and the basic lands we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 Forest. 1, 2, 3, 4 Swamps, and 2 Islands. And that brings us to a total of 34 lands in this deck. Trust me, you don't need more. You're just going to play stuff and mill them in your graveyard and then use other abilities to bring them back. Also, the less amount of land you have in your deck and the more creatures, it helps trigger Sidisi's ability. So if you're playing less lands, it increases your chances of when you do mill, you're going to get that zombie from Sidisi, which is essentially what you want to be doing. Alright guys, that's my deck tech. If you have any suggestions for me, go ahead and throw them in the comments below. I will be reading those comments regularly. If you have a suggestion for me, or if you have a card that you want to take out of this deck that you think is not good, leave it in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Just Add Misplay out. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like my content, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. Also, if you could hit the thumbs up, it really goes a long way and it helps out a lot. You can find me on Twitch at Just Add Misplay. Thanks again for your support, and we'll see you in the next video.